Kia ora and welcome to this Pacific Championship team listing reaction. New Zealand versus Samoa, the blokes, the lads, the men. We have Sean Sniggle-Croxstar at fullback for the New Zealand Kiwis, Jermaine Isako, Matthew Tomoko, Casey McLean, Ronaldo Mulitalo, Dylan Brown, and Kieran Foran in the halves. Kieran Foran and Dylan Brown, that was the expected halves combination, so no issues there. Really interested to see how Dylan Brown goes for the New Zealand Kiwis, coming off a interesting season for the Eels. And the only other notable thing here is the Nickel-Croxstar at fullback, because a lot of the reaction, there's always someone who wants Keanu Kinney at fullback, and this is the same stuff as the Warriors, where you've got the Nickel-Croxstar versus Tane Tuaupiki situation, and I understand them because you got two fast, smaller fullbacks, different levels. Like, fair enough, Keanu Kinney's probably better, or he is better than Tane Tuaupiki, versus the slower, more reliable Sean's Nickel-Croxstar. I do think there is a notable difference between the Kiwis and the Warriors, though. The Warriors are a slow rugby league team. That's why they signed Alofiana Khan Pereira. And as we talked in our podcast yesterday that you should check out, that is why they probably signed Aaron Clark, to add more speed to the forward pack. And when Sean's Nickel-Croxstar is playing for the Warriors, especially without Luke Metcalf, and when Tane Tuaupiki was on the wing, you still had a bit of speed, a bit of zip in those positions. But when it was Watene Zalesniak, Tuivasa-Sheck, and Nickel-Croxstar as the back three for the Warriors, that's a slow team. Very, very slow, which was one of the biggest weaknesses for the Warriors. The Kiwis, there is just far better runners, like Matthew Tomoko, lively, powerful, fast feet. Casey McLean I think he's pretty fast for a centre. He's a good mover. Isako, fast feet as well. Dylan Brown, good footwork, good running game, explosive. And you've got some good craft, good running craft with Jeremy Marshall-King at hooker. And then there's no shortage of fast forwards here. Nofahu White, Aaron Clark, Tapane's a good mover. Fisher Harris is a good mover. Moses Leota is a good mover. Britton Nakora, he can play centre at a stretch. So I'm not there's no certified speedsters in the Kiwis team named, but there is just far more agility, mobility in the outside back, not in the outside, in the back line especially, and just more footwork, more dynamic runners in that Kiwis team. So I think that is a better situation for Sean's Nickel-Croxstar, and I think he's just better suited to international rugby league than Keanu Kinney right now. Sean's Nickel-Croxstar, very good defensive fullback. He reads the play. He's always in the defensive line. He makes a lot of efforts. He's a bigger body than Keanu Kinney, so he's always putting his body in the way of the runner. And we've got multiple tests for Aotearoa where Sean's Nickel-Croxstar has run for 200 metres. I think that game against Australia that Kiwis won 30-0, he had a broken rib. What more do you want from Sean's Nickel-Croxstar? That is why he's the fullback for the Kiwis ahead of Keanu Kinney, and I don't really want to carry Keanu Kinney on the bench because you've got Phoenix Crossland. Phoenix Crossland can play hooker, he can play small forward, and he could play in the halves if required as well. So he's a better bench option than Keanu Kinney. Yes, Keanu Kinney has lightning speed. He is the fastest player in this whole squad for New Zealand, but a tough game of international rugby league, I'm still going with Sean's Nickel-Croxstar until he makes it so you can't select him. Until Sean's Nickel-Croxstar isn't good enough to play fullback for New Zealand, I'm going to select him in my team for test footy. It's a very different game to NRL, and Nickel Clockstar's better suited to it. And there's always also a bit of a situation, like the moment you don't select Nickel Clockstar, I'm pretty sure he's going to play for the Cook Islands. So you want to give him a decent run, and we know all about the Kiwis mana because there's a lot of senior players who are getting extended opportunities, as you would expect for a group like this. And it's the same with Samoa. Like, a lot of senior players get that respect, which we can all understand. Going into the forward pack, Fisher Harris, Marshall King, Leota Nikora, Isaiah Papali, and Joseph Tapine. Fairly stock standard. You might say Isaiah Papali is better suited to the bench, where he can play edge and middle, but he's going to be I reckon he could be an 80-minute edge forward. You might have two 80-minute edge forwards, Nikora and Isaiah Papali'i. And the other funky thing here is Jeremy Marshall King, because we haven't had a specialist high quality hooker for the Kiwis since the World Cup. I think at the World Cup you had Marshall King and Brandon Smith at hooker. Then in the 2023 Pacific Championship, the Kiwis won against Australia and Samoa. They 50-0 against Samoa in Auckland, then 30-0 against Australia in the final. Of course, they lost to Australia between that. But in those games in New Zealand, they had a combined scoreline of 80-0 against Samoa and Australia, with a dummy half combination of Fa'amanu Brown and Kieran Foran. Last year, it was Phoenix Crossland, I think, spent most of the Pacific Championships at hooker. And now we have a specialist, crafty dummy half and Marshall King starting the game. And I think that is going to be very useful for the Kiwis in general. But also when you compare it to Samoa, who have Jazz Tavanga starting hooker and Chanel Harris-Tavita coming off the bench. Benai Iowelu is outside the top 17. He's named in the number 18 jersey. Jazz Tavanga, he's a defensive dummy half. He's not going to burst out a dummy half. He's not going to take the defense one way, pass it the other way. He does his job at hooker. I wouldn't call him a crafty dummy half. And I'll get into Harris-Tavita in a jiffy, but I think the best dummy half in this game is Marshall King, and I'm fascinated to see how that helps the Kiwis. I think it will help the Kiwis, especially when they have middle forward trio of Fisher Harris, Leota, and Joseph Tapine. I don't care about prop and lock. All I care about is your middle forwards, your edge forwards. I even created the small forward idea for guys like Aaron Clark, Phoenix Crossland, and those characters who you would otherwise call a lock forward. I just go with three middle forwards. If you're a big bopper, you're a big bopper. If you're an edge middle versatile forward, you're an edge middle versatile forward. If you're a smaller forward, you're a small forward. Who cares about the prop and lock label? And that's going to be on display because Fisher, Harris, Leota, and Tapine as a middle forward trio. That's as good as it gets for New Zealand Rugby League. On the bench, we've got Crossland, Nofahu White, Aaron Clark, Asafa Solomona. Again, Kiwis mana. Asafa Solomona is always going to be top 17. And Aaron Clark deserves his spot. Nofahu White deserves his spot, especially Nofahu White coming off the Pacific Championships last year. He had his best year in NRL footy this year, same with Aaron Clark. So I can understand why they were all selected ahead of Xavier Willison. The only slight issue there is that edge middle versatility on the bench. We have seen Asafa Solomona play edge forward for the Storm in the last few seasons. So that would be a bit of a wild one to see at the international level right now, given his situation. And that's the advantage of having Willison in the top 17. He can play edge, he can play middle. But yeah, it will be, I don't know what the best option to cover edge forward is. But hopefully you don't need that situation. So it's all good. Extended bench, we've got Willison, Kinney, Sorensen, Chris. Talked about Willison, Kinney, and then Sorensen and Chris, just good squad members. Sorensen would be He can be an 80-minute edge forward for the Kiwis. Sebastian Chris can cover centre wing. Very good squad players to have in a tournament like this, but I agree they're not necessarily top 17 players. Samoa, we have Aotearoa flavour for Samoa only. Tuivasa Sheck at fullback. Dean Mariner centre. We've got Jazz Tavanga at hooker. And Chanel Harris-Tavita, the bench utility. Simi Sasangi coming off the bench as well. Extended bench, Aiowelu and Mariota are both on that extended bench. The thing I've always thought about with the Warriors, the reason why Tuivasa Sheck doesn't play fullback for the Warriors, not necessarily like a silky passer, and even Nickel Clockstar, he's not a silky passer, because the Warriors, when they shift to their sidelines, they always get stuck in a cul-de-sac because there's just no space, there's nothing to work with because their shapes are a bit iffy. But Nickel Clockstar, I do have him as a better distributor than Tuivasa Sheck. Nickel Clockstar does the same running mahi that Tuivasa Sheck can do at fullback, same defensive mahi. I think they're quite even as fullbacks right now. So it'll be interesting to see what Tuivasa Sheck does from a playmaking perspective, like out the back of shape, his decision making, his skills, short ball, long ball, and how the New Zealand Kiwis put pressure on Tuivasa Sheck as far as that goes. Then we get to Harris-Tavita, and again, got the Warriors cap on because there's a lot of Warriors wrinkles top of mind here. Harris-Tavita, first of all, I think he's like a left-footed Dylan Brown. Same, like Harris-Tavita does have razzle-dazzle potential, but he doesn't do it often. He's more of a just make your run meters, make your tackles, get the ball where it needs to go. That is what Dylan Brown did as a 19, 20-year-old. He was averaging 100 meters. He was making all his tackles. That's what made him such a good number 6 very early in his NRL career. That's what Harris-Tavita has done at the Warriors. And I think that Luke Metcalf Harris-Tavita combination is very effective for the Warriors. But if you take out Luke Metcalf, then it does put a bit more responsibility on Harris-Tavita. I'm not sure if he thrives in that situation. Harris-Tavita played his best footy with Luke Metcalf. Harris-Tavita was getting all the try assists. Luke Metcalf was getting all the tries. Really good halves balance. And I also think that Harris-Tavita is a very good utility coming off the bench. So if you're a Warriors fan, you'll be watching this closely because there's a lot of other contenders for halves roles at the Warriors that could see Harris-Tavita, his best position being a utility, but then again, is Harris-Tavita a better dummy half than Samuel Healy? Those are Warriors things though, and I do think for Samoa, they will need that Tavanga Harris-Tavita combination manipulating the ruck area. I don't know if they can do it to the same effectiveness as the Kiwis, because they're not very explosive. But then again, Marshall King, he's not explosive, but he's a very good assessor of the dummy half, of the ruck, where the markers are, where the space is. And I'm curious to see what impact Harris-Tavita has in the middle of this game, coming after Jazz Tavanga, who probably won't have many run meters. So that's something to watch out for. To me, the best dummy half in that Samoan squad is Benai Aiowelu, but he's not in the top 17. That's a similar situation to Keanu Kinney, right? Like Aiowelu, yes, I think he's the best dummy half. He's not being selected ahead of those senior Samoan players, guys who have dedicated themselves to Samoa, Tavanga and Harris-Tavita. So there's the same seniority stuff happening there. And Simi Sasangi gets a good opportunity on the bench, which is his best position, because we saw with the Raiders, he can cover centre, he can cover edge forward. They even selected him in the halves for the finals game, and I think he did play a bit of number 6 for the Knights when he was coming through their system after leaving Auckland. So that's a very useful role for Simi Sasangi. He can cover Like, he will be the key dude on that bench because he can cover so many different positions, and that is an advantage Samoa has because there isn't the same versatility on the Kiwis bench. And I think that's all for the Samoa Aotearoa wrinkles. Obviously, you got a team full of Samoans. I haven't done the math here, but you might have like 5 or 6 Samoans for the Kiwis team, as I said in the last video. So if we got 17 Samoans on the field for Samoa, you might have like 25 players on the field at any given time being Samoan, which is an interesting little wrinkle. And then we go over to the women's game, Kiwi Ferns versus Samoa. I'll start with Samoa here. Jessica Patea is coming out of Wellington. She's a Wainoia Mata Junior. Already played for Samoa. She played last year. Watch out for her on the wing. We've also got Serena Masanga. She was at Howick in Auckland before going over to the Gold Coast Titans. Very powerful, fast centre. Aneta Nu'uausala, fresh off signing with the Warriors. She's starting prop. Niall Williams-Guthrie is at edge forward, not centre. Don't think she played NRLW this year, but she gets an opportunity at edge forward. And that's pretty much everyone. Not a huge Aotearoa presence in that women's squad for Samoa, but a couple of key players to watch out for. Kiwi Ferns, Api Nichols, Shanice Parker, Abigail Roach, Mele Hofunga, Taisha Ikanasio, Patricia Maliepo, Racy McGregor in the backline. The main selection funk there is Ikanasio being selected on the wing ahead of Leanne Tufunga. Leanne Tufunga, who I think is from Otara, the best Kiwi Ferns backline has Tufunga on the wing ahead of Ikanasio. But I think they're just giving Ikanasio a crack against Samoa. And I think that's the same for the forwards, but I'll talk about that in a jiffy. But Ikanasio gets her opportunity on the wing. She did play most of the season at centre for the Warriors, and including Tufunga, Parker, Roach, Hofunga, Ikanasio, and Tufunga, I think they all played centre in the NRLW this year, but Parker and Tufunga have played on the wing for the Kiwi Ferns before, and I agree with the coach. Abigail Roach and Mele Hofunga are the 2 best centres. Mele Hofunga, superstar of the NRLW, but Abigail Roach is all class as well. She will smash you without the ball, and she's just a very silky, effortless centre. For some reason, Steve Matai just came to mind when I was thinking about Abigail Roach, because she does have the same defensive whack, but just always making the right decisions in attack. Good runner, good passer, knows the space well, and that's all stuff that Steve Matai did really well for a long NRL career. Kiwis International, Samoan International. Patricia Maliepo, she gets an opportunity in the halves with Racy McGregor, which is a great situation for Maliepo. Not only is she a good kicker, like Maliepo, she's very similar to Dylan Brown as well, because you've got the running, kicking, and tackling right there. Very important skills to have as a player new to the NRL, new to the NRLW, and she will be partnered with an experienced pure halfback. That is very important for Maliepo and her role with the Kiwi Ferns. So watch out for her. We do have the Southern Cross duo of Hufonga and Maliepo playing in the same Kiwi Ferns together, both Tongans. And very excited to see Maliepo. Then we get into the forward pack. Angelina Tiakaranga Katoa, Brooke Anderson, Brianna Clark, Anessa Biddle, Shakira Baker, Georgia Hale. The Brooke Anderson played as a small forward all season for the Cronulla Sharks. So you got two small forwards from NRLW in the same Kiwi Ferns starting forward pack, because Georgia Hale, she plays in the middle as well for the Titans. And there isn't necessarily a specialist dummy half of like a Kiwi Ferns caliber right now. Capri Paikau was solid without being spectacular for the Warriors this season. But Brooke Anderson, her defense is going to be very useful for the Kiwi Ferns, because that's the issue with Ash Quinlan. If she's playing in the middle, defense isn't quite good, whereas Tyler King, who is not in the top 17, I think she is top 17 talent for the Kiwi Ferns. She can play halves, she can play fullback, she can play utility off the bench, bit of hooker. She's just got like a ruthless effort that I think, not effort, but a ruthless like natural embrace of the collision and the contact. Tyler King just rips in, is what I'm saying, and I think she should be in the top team. But just thinking that maybe the Kiwi Ferns are just giving some opportunities to play her against Samoa, and then there could be some changes for the game against Australia. Tia Karanga katoa, Brianna Clark, no issues there with the starting props. Brianna Clark is a goal kicker, so I think that's going to be very important to have her in the team. Anessa Biddle, she's a centre in NRLW for the Sharks, but she has played edge forward for the Kiwi Ferns before. So these players who are playing out of positions compared to NRLW, it is important to note they've played their current roles for the Kiwi Ferns before. Parker's been on the wing. Tufunga has played on the wing before for the Kiwi Ferns. Anessa Biddle has played edge forward for the Kiwi Ferns before, and she will be joined by Shakira Baker as a starting edge forward for the Kiwi Ferns, who was fantastic in her first season of rugby league with the Warriors. On the bench, we got Quinlan, who can cover the halves as well. That's probably her best position. But then we got Otessa Pule, Alexis Tauiniai, and Ivana Lauatiti. All three of them, Samoan as well. Otessa Pule, I think she is from Otara before moving to Australia. Very good middle forward coming with the Roosters. Tauiniai, she's a young legend in my eyes. She's a fantastic middle forward who can play edge forward as well. She did do a bit of edge forward for the Bulldogs, so if you are looking for a bit of cover at edge forward, I would expect Tauiniai to shift to the edge. And then you've got Lauatiti, who is crazy. Said it before, I say it again. She is the female version of Lekahala Sema, which means she is Ivana Lauatiti, and she is the two number 17s in this game, Lauatiti and Shalom Sawaso, she was fantastic for the Broncos this season. Two very fast, very powerful forwards that will hopefully be on the field together doing some crazy shit. Tiana Davison, sister of Breakers player Carlin Davison. She is 18th lady, man, 18th man, 18th woman. She's in the 18 jersey. Then you got Tufunga, King, and Shanice Monchel. Shanice Monchel covers edge forward. She played her first season with the Bulldogs this year, coming out of Auckland. I think she played for Mount Albert before going to the Bulldogs. Tiana Davison, to me, her and Tufunga are both top 17 players. I think even King, I'd prefer King over Quinlan on the bench. So it'll be interesting to see if Davison can crack the team. I do think Lauatiti's getting the opportunity against Samoa, but Davison was fantastic for the Knights this season. She's won NRLW championships coming out of Taranaki. I think she will get an opportunity very soon, but it's the three Samoans get an opportunity on the bench for this game, and Lauatiti gets her debut, which will be very exciting. Let's check in with the Cook Islands as well. Not too much Aotearoa flavour for Fiji, but the Cook Islands have the bulk of their squad is coming out of Aotearoa. No Marata Niokore in the squad, but we do have, so Esan Masters, the legend, he's at fullback. Allberg coming out of Wellington, he's on the wing. Ruben Rennie from Auckland, he's at centre. Iso Maioka on the wing. Cassius Cowley from Tokoroa, he's at halfback. Watch out for him, young half who did spend time with the Warriors. Makahisi Makatoa from New Plymouth, starting prop. Ruben Porter, Tiaratu Jr. on the edge forward, and Pride Peterson Robati is in the number 13 jersey. So you do have a nice little bit of regional flavour there. Peterson Robati, Allberg from Wellington, I believe. and Makatoa coming out of New Plymouth. And Brody Tamarua spent a long time in the Warriors system. He is on the bench for the Cook Islands. The women's Cook Island team, I'm not an expert on all these players, but we do have Lydia Tudor-Quedley, former Warrior. She is in the number 6 jersey. Ashley Matapo, who is, I think she's actually younger than Lauatiti, and she played for the Warriors this season. She played more than Lauatiti for the Warriors this season. She started, I think she played round 1, maybe round 2 as a development player. She'll be starting a prop for the Cook Islands. Kaya Atai, I thought she was in the Kiwi Ferns mixer, but they've when you look at the Kiwi Ferns edge forwards, Biddle, Baker, Monshao, those characters, I can see why Kaya Atai has stuck with the Cook Islands. She is a very classy player for the Warriors this season because she played centre, edge forward, middle forward. Now she's edge forward for the Cook Islands. And also watch out for the duo coming off the bench, Kirahitina Matua and Ngā Tokotoro Arakua. Both are for like Manuri or adjacent because they've played for a few different clubs in the region like Papakura as well as Rugby Union, but they are very funky forwards, like a lot of skill, a lot of power, and they have been grinding away on the local scene, rugby league, rugby union, especially Arakua, because I do think she played for the Chiefs women a few years ago. They will add a lot of impact off the bench for the Cook Islands coming up against Papua New Guinea. So we'll be enjoying all the international rugby league this weekend. Enjoy it because this is something this is something that rugby league doesn't do as well as rugby union, is the international schedule, the variety of nations involved, but we get it. At least we're getting international rugby league every year, even if it is shuffled at the to the back end of the season when everyone's buggered. But we're here enjoying the footy. Kiwis versus Samoa, men and women, on Sunday. And the Cook Islands game is on Saturday. Those will be played. Both of them are in PNG. So Cook Islands are playing against Fiji. Cook Islands men are playing against Fiji in PNG. Cook Islands women are playing against Papua New Guinea in Papua New Guinea. And obviously the Kiwi Samoa games are both at the Temple of Mount Smart Stadium. Big up to you. Make sure you're doing your best. Cowabunga, boom shakalaka. Your bum smells like caca.